Yes.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Ann Ms. DeVoe?
Yes.
Mr. Jallo?
Yes.
Mr. Tewari?
Yes.
And Chairman Galtieri?
Good evening. Can everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let the record reflect, Mr. Chairman, that Mr.
Good timing,
is
huh?
here.
Good timing, huh?
And Commissioner Ford is also here.
Okay. Somewhere is my... In accordance with the provisions of Chapter 231 New Jersey Public Laws of 1975, the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by the giving a notice to the Courier News, posting the agenda in the public lobby of this building 48 hours prior to this meeting, delivery of this notice to the Franklin Township Clerk at least 48 hours prior to this meeting, and mailing notice to those persons properly requesting to be mailed notification of meetings at least 48 hours prior to this meeting. All right. Do we have a motion to open the meeting for public comments?
Motion.
Second?
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right. Seeing no public here, is there a motion to close the meeting for public comments?
Motion?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of closing the meeting for public comments, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. Approval of the minutes. Did everybody get a chance to review the meeting minutes from the June 4th meeting? And also, in front of you is the executive session meeting minutes. Are we able to do those?
We'll do that after the quick executive, after the executive session, including the monthly board meeting.
Okay. So any questions, concerns, changes? All right. Is there a motion to approve the working session monthly board meeting minutes from June 4th, 2019?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second?
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Ann
Yes.
Ms. DeVoe?
Yes.
Ms. Ford?
Abstain.
Mr. Jallo?
Yeah.
And Mr. Tewari?
Yes.
And Chairman Galtieri?
Yes. Okay. Moving on to executive summary professional reports.
All right, good evening, everyone. Commissioners, thanks for coming. All right, so we've actually had a very busy month this past month for some unexpected items that popped up regarding you. Probably, if you were watching the news at some point, we were on the news because of we shut down exit 12 for the Western Canal Force Main, so I'll take you through that, bring you up to speed on where we are with that. First, I'll start with our standard projects. So if you look at the executive summary, the report that says executive summary professional report, we'll start with that. Legal, no issues. There will be an a session, executive session tonight, but no major issues there. Marcy Street sanitary sewer rehabilitation. The color is green. So we received the specification document for this, which has been passed on to our attorney for his review. We also have started the NJI bank funding process. And we're at this point, because of the fact that, if you recall, this is a $5.3 million rehabilitation that we're doing in the Marcy Street area, of which $3 million of it will be funded out of the North Street Fund, the North Track Fund, the North Track Fund, leaving roughly the loan that we're going for is 2.5 with the NGI Bank, and because of the rules relative to getting the funding, we cannot at this point proceed any further until we get authorization from the New Jersey, the NJIA Bank, to authorize to advertise. Based upon the current leading time that has, again, the detailed schedules are in the updates, in the status reports given to you by our consulting engineer, CME. We'll be looking to authorize to advertise somewhere around March of 2020. So at this point, while in that process, it takes a while for that to go through. But for where we are now, we're green, we're where we want to be, and we've met, the conditions to meet we had to upload the last portion of that document. You were going to get that done this week?
The step 2 has to be submitted,
Okay.
and then we will upload the
Okay.
planning
All
document.
right, and we'll take care of step 2 this week?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so we're on track there.
That's gonna involve a lot of, this one we have to dig, right?
Yes.
Yes, this is not a trenchless, this will actually involve a significant amount of digging in there are a number of sewer mains on a number of streets that have to be dug up, so yes.
And the
And we'll have
lateral
and
connection.
lateral connections, we'll have bypasses put in place. It is a significant project, as you would expect one that is for 5.2 million. Having said that, it's necessary, again, just to remind our commissioners that right now, the authority has been told by MCUA multiple times that they're not allowing us to hook new people that are not part of the service area up to our system until we get our I&I under control, or basically our leaking that we have in the system, right? So this is a significant project to address that, and the one I'm about to talk to now, Foxwood Drive rehab that we're completing, that was also a very successful project. It's just completed. We're done the construction aspect. We just had the closeout meeting with DEP, New Jersey DEP. There were no issues brought to our attention, so we expect the closeout process to occur. And tonight you are authorizing the final payout for $184,000 and change. I do want to say that National Water Main, our contractor on that project, in my opinion and the opinion of Scott, who, as I mentioned at the last meeting, Scott won't be able to be here tonight. They did a really good job. They teamed well with the sewage authority. They were a very good contractor to work with. If I ever have the opportunity to work with them again, I certainly would take it. They were very quality conscious. And, if you recall, we had a slow spot in November and December when we got deluged with rain, and then there were the water main breaks in that area from the town that also had to be fixed. So a lot of positive work came in from that project to reduce the I&I, which again is what we need to demonstrate to MCUA when they start asking about our ability to, as you actually have, that will be one of their questions when they get the TWA tank that we're going to sign. They constantly ask, how are you doing on your I&I?
All right,
So Foxwood is green.
so we've met the EPA deadline and all that's
Yes.
submitted?
Yep, right. So, and we're also, as part of that, we've, Joe, on behalf of our consulting engineer, he submitted a letter which is under review by our attorney that we will send to the DEP to say, hey, you had this decree on us. We believe that we have done everything that required. We have not had any issues since. So we believe that once we file that letter, that we will be relieved of that decree and have met its commitment. So
Okay.
overall, a really nice job on the Foxwood Drive area rehab. So Hamilton Street, the pump station, so as you recall at the last meeting, I reported out that we did receive the one bid, Delane
Tulane, yes.
Delane Contracting, and that there were some questions that that we had to have resolved, that we wanted to meet with them. There was just some open items that we wanted to address. That meeting occurred roughly 2 weeks ago,
19th.
the 19th. Joe sat down and Mike from CME along with Scott and a few others. And the contractor came in, did a really nice job answering our questions. Joe provided a summary of that, but basically tonight we, as part of one of our resolutions, we're making the recommendation that we do the award to them for that project so we can start moving forward on that. The construction window is about a 14-month construction window.
Yes.
And we're hoping that they would start somewhere very late part of July, most likely August, because we have to wait for the pre-con meeting.
Correct. We'd execute contracts, schedule a pre-construction meeting with the DEP, and then proceed.
Right. So we're probably closer to the middle of August. I know my report probably said the end of July, but as I step through that timeline, we're probably looking to the middle of August to start that. So again, a nice timeline there. The contractor is very much aware of how urgent this project is for us, and that we do want to see it completed on time. As you know, we've had some issues at times, and I think he's well aware of our stance here and seemed very amenable and open to the feedback that we provided to him.
Okay. For that one, for the pre-con, can you let the construction committee know when that is, and then
Sure.
at your
And who's on the
it's
construction
Commissioner
committee?
Amberson and Commissioner Tawari.
Okay.
So if
Yes.
you're available, even for a call or something. So thank you.
When is it likely to, when is the call? Is
Uh,
there a call?
Well, we'll have a meeting. If we have to set up a call, we'll look at the possibility. We'll certainly look at being
Probably
trying to do
mid-July.
that.
It sounds like.
Maybe.
Okay. All right, so that's the Hamilton Street, yep. And now, what seems to be the problem child? Always have to have a problem child. Well, when we have, as you can tell, we have a lot of projects, right? They all can't be green. So we do have our yellow Somerset Street Pump Station. So as you know, we've really reported out on this in the last couple of months. It's kind of stalled. Part of it is an unexplainable stalling, and the other part of it is that this month I had hoped to be able to turn my attention to that, more attention to Somerset Street. Howard has been doing his best, working hard to work with the contractor, but I did get derailed by the Western Canal, which I'll talk about. But we have a face-to-face that's scheduled on July 10th. Where I will be sitting down with Howard and the president of the construction company to lay out a schedule. The schedule that's provided in the packet says that we think that they're going to complete somewhere around 9/15. That's the date that you, right around September 15th. I will be doing my best to impress upon Ralph that I am looking for a much earlier date than that date.
Because it's 6 months behind roughly, right?
Yes, yes. So there are, some, there are some, I guess, valid concerns, but there certainly is a lot of gray in the delay that I'm not happy with, but unfortunately, like I said, with the whole onslaught of Western Canal this month, I just did not get the ability to have that scheduled, that meeting scheduled any earlier. All right, so
Brian, do you know why they're late? I mean, do I have any?
as I reported a number of times, there were valid slips in the beginning that I understood and acknowledged, but the last 2 months, it seems to be more of the fact that he really hasn't been able to mobilize a core group of his contractors to get there to take care of work. And then there was, we had an issue where our grinder, somehow, we're not sure, because the grounds isn't secured at night, that the grinder's electrical wiring to it got pulled, and then water got into the well, and that affected the grinder. It had to be pulled out. So that in essence is the block right now, because that grinder was in the critical path, but there's there's uncertainty to as, okay, how did that wire, the electrical wire get disconnected, which then had the grinder sitting in water and then really just kind of rusting and getting corrupted and not being able to work. So we're gonna sit down and like I said, have a face-to-face with him. And so far I've been pretty successful after my face-to-face, so I expect.
It's a fixed price contract with them, or what kind of
Yes,
contract?
yes, so again, as I report, as stated in my report, right, there is no, we are not, the contract is the contract, there is no, though an extension of time is given, we're not extending any price considerations or anything. So, it won't cost the authority any direct money.
So do we still, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
So do we still owe construction company a piece of the cost?
Yes, in fact, but, you know, they're at least not attempting. I had a contractor when they weren't doing any work billing us for their work. This is not the case with them. They're not submitting any payouts. The only payout you have in front of you tonight is for National Water Main, who did work and did the completion. So he recognizes he's not doing anything. He's not trying to submit work. So again, it's a little dance here, but it's not that he's trying to take advantage of the authority by billing us for work that they're not doing.
And is everything done in the street that needs to be done?
Yes, so, well, fundamentally, yes, there is the last pavement.
Right. No, I mean,
That has to
like,
be
can the
done.
water department start going down there now whenever they're finished with their design? I mean, yes, he's still trying to do work over there, but the agreement is that the water department's supposed to go in, replace those before it gets paved hopefully by the fall. So is it enough that the water department could essentially start doing work down there?
Yes.
If needed, okay.
Yeah, right, because all the work that's left
It's
to be
just
done
the
is on
station.
the pump station property itself.
Okay.
And one manhole that's outside. Right, that's in the, right, okay, yeah, so
Yeah.
there's no, we
Okay.
wouldn't be holding up anybody else.
Okay.
Okay, East Millstone document, that hasn't moved forward basically because of me. It's on me, and like I said, I got kind of sidetracked this month. All right, so Weston Canal emergency force main. So on Friday, June 7th, we received a call in the afternoon that there was a leak notice, that American Water Company got a call and said that, you know, there was a leak on Weston Canal and it wasn't water, and they believe it was our sewer. So this time we went out there, and yes, there was no doubt about it this time, there was a leak. That was about Friday. We called in an emergency contractor who mobilized very quickly. However, that work did go through the night. We did find the leak. It was actually, we dug up a piece of road we had dug up a couple of months ago, so we knew exactly where it was. And this time, that pipe, if anybody is interested in seeing the pipe, it's still outside by the garage in the back, so we could demonstrate how it happened, I guess, and how it self-healed itself the last time, the way that the crack formed and that the waste would basically clog itself. But this time, with enough pressure, it broke really good, and it stayed broke until we fixed it. We did work through the night. And then on Tuesday night at about 11 o'clock, I got a call from Scott that there was another leak on, that there was American Water Company had called him and said, yep, we got a call on a report of the leak. They went out, it wasn't water, and that one, it was about 45, if you were looking at the canal from where exit 12, the ramp, looking at it, it was about 45 feet to the right of the previous break. So again, you know, we had an emergency contractor come out, and that one, they worked through Tuesday into Wednesday morning, and then we resolved that issue. Along with that, there was, we noticed a leak behind or under the overpass, And as part of that fixing up, we also had the contractor take care of that. So there were 3 breaks within a week. When that all got down to DEP and down to Trenton, then it escalated back up, and I received a call from the regional director at DEP that said, okay, you have a problem here. I'm like, yes, well aware of it. And prior to that, I had called Joe, and let me also at this point say that CME, our consulting engineering firm, responded very well. They did a really good job for us, coming out quickly, and on the weekend, on Saturday, looking at the thing. I think I woke Mike up at 5:30 in the morning, not realizing he was in Arizona. I did wait until 9. It's just it was 9 on the East Coast. Didn't realize he was on the West Coast. So, they partnered really well with us, along with Lucas Construction. Really fine job they did. So, I had indicated to, and I already had the discussion with Joe and with Scott, that we would not be able to, I knew we would not be able to bid this out, that this wouldn't be able to be a project, because looking at that pipe, seeing the second piece of pipe that got pulled out, and the third, there was an immediate problem that had to be resolved. And with the fact that we had sewage overflows into the canal, I knew that that was a serious issue. So when the DEP regional director called me, I said that we are not bidding this out. We will be treating it as an emergency, and he was very happy to hear that, because that's the answer he wanted. Basically said that's the answer I wanted you to tell me. So we were already on that track. By the time DEP actually, called and was talking to us, we already had a plan laid out. We were talking about how we were going to have it. We'd bring in the National Water Main, do the cammering, take a look at it, line up a firm, contractor to do the lining, National Water Main, or NTEC is also.
NTEC.
Right, NTEC is doing this because the National Water Main couldn't do this one. So NTEC is the contractor that's doing it. So we already had a plan in place, and I had to present that to DEP to say, here's what we're doing. They had to approve it. And right now we do have an approval, a plan from DEP to continue. With that plan, what had happened, part of that was, if you drive there now, you will see on the pump station that we have a bypass coming out of the pump station, going under the road to the other side, and then 10-inch, 12-inch,
high-density polyethylene, it's black pipe.
right, black pipe, that is the bypass. So the pump station is fully operational. We did not go to a backup pump, which would have required diesel and, all the backups. We were able to, and Scott's not here. Again, I have to give a lot of credit to Scott in the discussion of how to do this the best way. Scott was very involved in the design of the bypass and how we were going to do it. And so right now that pump station is fully operational. And what's very impressive is that a week ago Monday, Sunday night, like it poured. Like we got hit with a ton of rain, a lot. And then we were immediately put we tested the bypass because of the amount of water that was coming into it. And the fact that our regular force main is 16-inch, our bypass is 12 with really even smaller, right?
Right,
Because
it's
12.
because it's thick wall.
Right, it's thick wall, so the internal is like 10 something, 10 and 3/4. That reduced the capacity. So Scott was a little nervous on Monday, but everything worked well, and it worked as designed. So the bypass, certainly could be in place for months. That's not the plan. The plan is right now that we will start the lining process on or about July 15th. There will be some additional construction, road work opening that we have to do to get an access point. But other than that, we will be able to do this without really closing down Western Canal for a significant portion. We'll probably have to close a lane or two,
Right.
A day, at best. So on the bright side, we are getting very good practice with traffic control. We have it pretty well understood down there in that area now. So again, this was that one, that week was just really, it was, at some point, it was just unbelievable. Like, you had to have a sense of humor to get through the week, because it was just one break after another. And DEP, MCUA, Middlesex Water, New Brunswick Water, because New Brunswick Water, Middlesex Water draw out of the canal at the lower portion of it, so they had to shut their intake. It was a very, in all seriousness, it was a very sensitive and critical situation. But I can report that the sewage authority with its partners handled it very well, and DEP, I have emails from the DEP saying they're very happy with the plan that we have in place and the way that we attack this. So now, so how much is this going to cost? So how much is it going to cost, Brian? So right now, we're in materials. We know we're in the hole for about 450 grand, probably a little higher, because I think I only have some of the valves, not all of them, but 450. So this may go anywhere from 550 to 750 for the total cost to complete this process. And I think, given where we are, that's a fair number. So I will be looking at and working with Andy to understand relative to the cash balances where the money can come from if we also have to. Because if you recall, June 7th, the date, our new budget started June 1st. So Eric reminded me that we may have to do we may actually have to do an emergency budget to reallocate funds to do a transfer because the DCA may not allow us to go over in certain buckets. So once I understand all that, I naturally will report out to you and naturally take all the steps necessary to put together a plan and execute on it, such that if that's what DCA wants, that's what we'll do. All right, so that is it on Weston. I put the color yellow mostly because of the fact that the schedule is pretty solid, but the cost I obviously need to get a little more detail about how we're going to allocate, because obviously this was not in the budget. This amount of money.
Ron, how old are the pipes?
So this pipe, this 16-inch was done, as best we can tell from the printouts, the blueprints we have, 1982, 81, 82. There was, previously there was a 10-inch force main that was there, probably going back to the 60s. That sometime at the end of 78, in that time frame, it was added. Now, the issue seems to be that when this force main was used, the pipe that was used was water pipe and not standard sewage pipe, which has a liner in it, a concrete
Cement line.
a cement liner that helps protect the pipe from the interaction with all the, especially in industrial, you're going to have a lot more chemicals, phosphorites, and all the other stuff that comes with it, right? Well, so there's that one issue. The second issue is when they installed that pipe at that time, the specifications we use, there has to be sand, DCA, more sand. There's certain levels so that pipe is supported. Well, actually, that pipe was sitting on shale most of it. So now, if you're familiar with that area, you have the trucks coming off of exit 12, right? That's heavy duty tractor trailer over, day in, day out, going over it. There's a lot of friction between that bottom pipe and the shale, right?
My concern is that going forward, what are we thinking about it as sewer authority? Are we going to get into this problem again? And is it going to cost us, in a certain way, $500,000 or more?
Yes,
That's
so-
my concern. What are we doing about that?
So I think the short answer to your question is no, and I'll explain. So, as I was saying here, is that they didn't use the specification pipe we would use today. They didn't install it as we would use today. There are other portions, there's a portion of that pipe from 287 to about, I want to say, to the intersection, what's that corner?
Edgewood.
Edgewood, but there's a hotel and a bar there.
Yeah.
So at that intersection, Cottontail, thank you, that the pipe, you know, was thin and not in good shape. We know though from cammering, the rest of that pipe is actually in pretty good condition. There's no concern. So the worst portion of that pipe really is from, in my in my layman's, at least for civil engineering's terms, is that portion of the road is taking a beating, and that pipe, that vibration just sat over it here, and that was a significant contributor to it. When we look at the pipe, if you went out in the back, if we took a break and went out there, you would see that the top 3/4 of that pipe is fine. Very thin on the bottom, and it was so thin on the bottom, that's where the crack happened, okay? It's not like there was a huge hole. Actually, the one under the bridge was a hole. So I believe that was an imperfection in the pipe, because that actually was a hole in the pipe where it broke. But where it happened in that road. So today, what we installed today are pipes we would expect to get 50, 60 years out. And the way, quite honestly, the way the sewage authority does cleaning, our sewer mains probably can get 75 years out, because Scott has that type. As you see, we talk about in our operational report, our cleaning, it's a 2-year. There probably isn't an authority, a sewage authority in the state that has a 2-year cycle. Some may say 3, most will say 5, and well, some will say 5. Most will say they don't have a planned maintenance cleaning process as we do. So that's why I believe that problem was very specific to that area, and there was multiple factors. One being the where it was, the location of Weston Canal, coming off the exit ramp, and the fact that specification pipe wasn't used. So now, having said that, we go through our line, we do a lot of countering when we think that, for example, on Churchill, that sewer main, when we were working on the Foxwood, we realized that we cambered that so that was an issue, and we decided that, okay, we would extend the work we were doing in Foxwood over to Churchill. So we have a very proactive maintenance plan here that the authority can be very proud of. And I really don't anticipate that, because that was, right? I'm sitting there, especially that Tuesday night, thinking, oh my Lord, how bad is this? Like, is it the whole 1800?
That's
And
what
then-
my worry
Right.
is.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and then I'm thinking, if we had to dig up the road, like, this is really a significant impact. So again, your first reactions, calm head prevail, you sit down, you look at it from an engineering point of view, what do you want to do, how do we attack it? And it really ends up that there's probably 400 feet of road that pipe was as bad as it is. And the rest of it, when we line it, will be good to go for another 70 years. No one around this table will be around the next time there's an issue with that pipe. That's sewer main. So that's why, with all due respect, I think that it's a very valid concern. I had it myself, but when I then started seeing the data, we were okay. All right. Any other questions on Weston Canal? Very good. All right. So at this point, I've added a new project, and the project at the bottom says our IT infrastructure upgrade. So since I came here, there have been a lot of upgrades that I've done with the financial system, our procedures. We had a lot of manual. We've automated. Part of the one area that I was delayed getting to just because of priorities was our IT infrastructure. We have PCs that are not on the same version of Outlook. We had a server that would freeze and crash. So Over the last, since the beginning of the year, when Network Blade came on, I made this critically important to Joe and to his team to make this a focus. So at this point, Joe has come up with a plan. I'm going to turn it over to him to talk about it. There's a voucher in there, or a requisition blank for a new server that we need to have. He'll talk about it. There's also an aspect, if you recall, when I first came on, you had Joe come on to do the forensic analysis of a certain user, so a previous user. So, and a part of that, we realized there were some security concerns. So the security aspect of his report, we will address in executive session. All right, Mr. Danielson.
Thanks, Brian. April. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Joe Danielson. Start from the beginning. I was called to do a forensic review of a computing device, and a lot of red flags immediately came up. And however, the task at hand of recovering data where it was previously said it was unrecoverable, I forgot who I spoke to. I said it's almost always recoverable to some extent. For those of you who may not know, like, computer hard drives are kind of like a book where you have a table of contents and then the chapters. When you delete something off a computing device, typically all you're doing is erasing the table of content notation, but the chapters are still there. So, and are able to be overwritten. So we successfully recovered that data, and actually recovered probably 5 times more than anyone thought was even there, including Dropbox, private Dropbox account. It was all recovered. But I did give a report that I also, in doing my review, there was a lot of concerns that I had and that I expressed. So I was further invited to come in to do a full analysis of the network, and I gave that report to Brian in April, and they decided to suggest that I come on as a regular vendor, IT vendor, and providing service. So based upon my assessment, I started my priority list of what needed to be completed. Now, as a new vendor, I'm also somewhat reliant on the old vendor, which was less than fully cooperative with me, but did provide some cooperation. So my first item that I wanted to do is change the backup system, because as I'm making changes, should something happen, I need a rollback point. But then your current backup system was only doing 1 backup a day, and that was only off-site. My backup solution was on-site every hour, encrypted, also that being sent off-site additionally, as well every night in an automated fashion with no human intervention. That backup is mounted, tested, and I get an email every evening with proof that the backup is good.
Joe, excuse me, just make sure there's certain of these items we're only going to discuss in executive session.
So I also instituted a monitoring service, so we basically have a 24/7 IT service watching over the office. Again, we'll talk about specific security issues. One thing that we had to deal with was your aged equipment. So in the offices, you have different age computers and operating systems, but your server was as long past the point it should have been replaced. You can't even get warranty for the server. So we're in the process. I actually rented a temporary server to move the email system off the old one to another old one, but not as old. And it gave some relief temporarily. We fixed up the wiring, which still needs to be fully mapped out and documented. And I also established remote access should staff members, authorized staff members, need to work remotely, and they could do so now as if they're in the office. So the previous vendor did provide some cooperation, not 100%, so I was kind of going blind on a number of things. When I would spot something that was off, like a server configuration, such as memory assigned to a virtual machine, where it should have been 12 gigs of memory and was only operating with 2 gigs of memory. I mean, we haven't seen 2 gigs of memory since 1998. And that came to my attention because the billing staff would do a process and was taking 6 hours. And I'm like, all right, something's wrong here. They couldn't explain why they configured the server like that, so I fixed it. A line of business applications that they'd use, specifically the financial ones, there was no documentation, no central documentation for someone to get in there, to look at it, work with the vendor, fix it, modify it. We have that now. The HP server will soon be replaced. We also created a second domain controller for fault tolerance and continuity. We're going to be running into an issue with your line of business app, the Flex Bill, that there's some, unless they come up with an update, Windows 10 has a conflict with it. So, so that first page, those are that's the list of things I've already completed, and the last page is future items that need to be completed. I will know right now that number 2, the TV truck, that's already been completed. They had a huge box server, must have been expensive at its time, but it was mammoth in size, drawing a lot of electricity, and I replaced that with a solid state computer about the size, half the size of a cigar box, and a new monitor. So, but the number 1 priority right now is protection of your email system. The one thing I did just in the recent past is I migrated all your email to Office 365. That's fully in the cloud, which reminds me, if you need me to help you with your iPads or your phones, whatever computing device you get it on, just let me know. But that service does need to go through a filtering service that's not been implemented yet. So we will be implementing that in the near future. This will be very shortly in the process of purchasing a new server, which will be probably 5 times faster than the 2 put together now, and virtualize your serving components on that, updating in an organized fashion the workstations where it makes sense. Additionally, the workstations are also all monitored now. So if something goes wrong, or remote access, or tech support, antivirus, everything, it's all packaged together. One area that's going to be probably somewhat painful is the way the previous vendor organized all the data is a mess. It's a project none of us are going to look forward to, but it's bad organization, from naming convention to security and access rights and folder placement, which server it's on. It's just all over the place. That's going to be a bit of a project. And that's the meat of it.
Thank you, Joe. So Joe will be, because of the critical path of the IT infrastructure, Joe will be joining us. I've asked him for a standard project report, just like he asked for all my vendors, will be going over that. And then for the foreseeable future, Joe will be part of the professional team that will be joining us at our board meeting.
As a reminder, if you haven't set up your emails, please set up your emails on
Right, for the
I-
iPad,
yeah.
you all have to, I haven't done it myself, but Joe said he's willing to stay tonight a little extra if, you know, if you have anything that you want to resolve there. Otherwise, you can set up another point with Joe and he'll be more than happy to meet with you.
His directions are good. It took me 2 minutes before the meeting tonight, so.
And
That'll-
Stevie is thrilled about the new computer in our camera truck, It's like, it's really fast.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Would your policy allow setting up email on our own device or
Mhm.
only on that?
Whatever.
Okay.
You could go to the website and log in right there.
Oh, okay.
From a
Yeah,
device.
webmail.
I do suggest that once, that you do that as a first step and then change your password.
So just understand, you know, just as Councilman understands, is that if you take authority, put that on your personal device, and if there's an issue and there's any Oprah requests, that device is included in that Oprah request. So
okay.
I keep, that's why, as
You keep it
annoying as it
separate.
is,
Okay, yeah, yeah.
I have two separate phones
Good point. Good point.
because I don't do sewage authority stuff
Mm.
on my personal phone.
And you also have a small data management policy in there that you can pull it from the device, so, because you have to authorize that when you
Mhm.
send it in,
Mhm.
so.
That's why I asked
Yeah,
that question.
so just be aware that there is the authority then would also have slight control over just a small portion of your device, that if we need to wipe it, then,
Yeah,
not the entire device, just that account.
yeah, and it really, the truth is that any public document value is gonna be within your email account.
Mhm.
It's not really that intrusive to the device.
Right.
And without you knowing, IT always has a way to get in.
Mhm.
So if someone says, Joe, get in, we're gonna get in.
Yeah.
Well, and frankly, even beyond all of us, if there was a law enforcement agency, they wouldn't even come to us, they're going to the cloud. There's always a way.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Danielson. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the executive director's report portion, unless there are any other questions relative to the project. Again, naturally, you all have, feel free to give me a call or see me offline if you want to discuss anything in further detail. So the revenue, expense, and cash accounts balances are all attached. I will say that if you take a look at the expenditure report, the expenditures and encumbrance, this really is now reflective of the end of the fiscal year, May 31st. So overall spending occurred at 97% of the budget, so we're a little under. There are some items that are high. We talked earlier in the year about the fact when last summer we had to have temporaries brought into because of people being out and this, that, and the other thing. So there are some areas that are high. There are some certain areas that are high because of the emergency work that we did in some of the items last year. So, but overall, 97% of the budget for the budget expenditures. All right. Okay, so some discussion items. All right, so we actually, last month I told you about our summer intern. I was very excited about that. And our summer intern, Andre DeQuiz, has started on June 10th on schedule. He's here, he's working, he has become an additional limb to Christian, where we see Christian there together. He's learning a lot. I meet with them on a weekly basis, minimally on a weekly basis is kind of a formal. We're talking every day, but minimally I meet with them once a week to go over project status. So he's very impressed with the authority and just over, like anybody else. So when you first come in, there's so many aspects to working in the sewage authority with rules and regulations and the township and government, like his head's spinning around. But this is a sharp guy, so he's catching on, and I'm really very happy to have him here. I'm really very thrilled to have the whole process of the intern started here and initiated with the sewage authority. I really think, as I said last month, I really think this is something the authority needs to do for the lifeline of the industry and bringing young engineers into it. There is a schedule and there are tasks that he has to do, and by August 14th, one of the projects is me getting an update on all our pump stations, capacity flows, average flows, high flows and whatnot, and that really is his area of responsibility during his internship here. We're updating the rate rules and regulations. That resolution's in your packet tonight. As I said when I came here, there were a number of changes that as I was going through that document, and I go through it fairly often with Christian for one reason or another. It's okay, let's break out let's see what the rate rules and regs say. And I always am interested to find out that at times it says something and our practice is something else. So when I see that, we make notes and we determine that, okay, now's an appropriate time to update it. And that's really kind of the case here with most of these. They're just trying to get things to be a little clearer, or making it work the way, making the document read the way that it actually works. We did have one change though that I did, which is the middle one, the Appendix B, page B3, Class 3, House of Worship, the classrooms. So at this point, a school that is associated with a house of worship that is not a full-time school. So I'll use the term, they have the classic Sunday schools. They'll have a session on Sunday, and they'll have a session maybe, Wednesday night or Thursday night, one night a week. The rate that we were charging that was the rate we were charging the full-time school, because of the way that it was written up. So in, stepping through that really is not fair to the smaller churches, or a synagogue or any place that has a school that's a part-time school. So we broke that into two types of charges. A charge for a school that is full-time, which equates to 4 days a week, to a part-time, which is 3 or less. That way, one for Sunday and possibly 2 nights during the week. So that is in here. We will go through, that will be reflective in the next quarter, charging the updates to the charges that we do in the next quarter. There is also a change because recently I focused a lot on the industrial monitoring that we did, and in talking to Scott and Christian, we were doing some of the sampling for some of our business clients, and there was really no reason for us to do it, because we send it out to a place that if anybody else was doing it, they were doing it, and then we charge them back. It takes a little longer. So to cut that through, we gave notice to our industrial clients that said effective a certain date, and I forget what it was, I think it was August 1st. No,
July 15th.
July 15th, that we would no longer be doing sampling, that you have to arrange and work through Christian to get approval for where you're sending your sample to. You can't send it to the Brian Regan School of Sampling, and I'm going to charge you, it has to be a certified place that's approved by the DP. And now we were giving them a month leeway, that if it took them a little time to find it, that we would support that. So that, in essence, we have a charge that we were charging them $250, but now we're not doing the charge, and we have, to be fair, we reduced that charge to $100. So that's fundamentally the changes to the rate rules and regulations. Again, when the next one will be, I'm not sure, but usually as I work with Christian and we go through stuff, I always find something that either generates a conversation like this whole thing about the classrooms. Like, is it really fair to charge, just because there's a school, but they don't use it the same rate as the school's being used full time. All right, so the good news from the last meeting is that we have reached agreement with Sycamore Developers who are doing Birch Glen, and I signed the treatment works agreement per your approval yesterday, July 1st. So that was very good. And the development agreement is part of the ordinance or the resolutions for tonight. So that, if you recall, is a property that's on the corner, basically behind Rester's, the Shell on Cedar Grove and Amwell. So that's there are 32 homes that are gonna go in there. And they're going where I asked them to go this time last year. So if they just took my advice and agreed to go there last year, this would have been done a lot earlier. We are in the process of doing the office reconfigurations, as I explained previously at the last 2 meetings. We have picked out a floor plan, I would say, for each of the offices. And basically, for the staff, you know, since it wasn't the office, I wasn't sitting there a lot, I said, here, you choose, these are the 2 options I'm comfortable with, pick which one you want. So we're moving along on that. As you know, we've been upgrading the security here at the complex, and if you notice coming in, the windows in the billing and in the admin's desk has been fully upgraded. As you heard, we're upgrading our server. There's a voucher for that, the requisition, an invoice. The home hazardous waste day. So that occurred here a week ago. No, when did that occur? Now I just reflect on the dates.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago on Saturday. So from the county's point of view, because it really is a county event, it was the most successful one they had. Over 1,100 vehicles. I had 110. Over 1,100 vehicles attended, with over 57 tons of hazmat. That was a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. And we will be hosting the shredding day for the town, because the towns are required to do this. And again, because of the location of our authority versus the municipal complex on Demont, we agreed to take that for them. So this favor is really being done for our friends at the township. They need to remember that. But so it's our pleasure to host it again. It's a lot easier to do it this end of town. So, they will expect us, we said about 600 cars, right? Yeah, about 600 cars for this event this day. All right, so part of your packet, again, the resolutions, you will have standard the resolutions for all, for our payroll account, operating expense, general fund, renewal and replacement, transferring out of the renewal and replacement construction fund, which actually is one of the loans that are on your cash balance sheet, track and escrow. There is a resolution to authorize the executive director and myself to execute the agreement with Delaney Contracting, and the resolution for the changes to the RRR and the development agreement for Birch Glen that I mentioned. So those are the discussion items, and you will have a closed session tonight. We will just talk in a little more detail. Joe will give you an update about some of the security changes that we did, make you aware of what's going on there. And then there's also an issue with the attorney and the chairperson that they will bring you up to date on a personnel issue regarding me. So that is it. Any questions on the executive director's report? All right.
Quick question.
Shoot.
I know we had a staff member leave us in May, I believe. Are we filling that position?
So we have interviewed. We're going through that process.
Okay.
Again, the amount of time that Scott has been required to do on this Western Canal was just,
correct,
a lot. So
okay.
We did get derailed a little in June, more than we wanted to. Okay, so now I will turn it over to me to read Scott's report, the operations report. So we'll go through this quickly. Emergency generators were all tested. We had some work done at Shirley Avenue Pump Station, Grigstown, our typical maintenance. The Western Canal, besides the issue with the force main, we had some maintenance work done on the pump station. We also had inspections done on the Somerset Street pump station. No issues with odor control. We continue, as I talked about earlier, our 2-year township program of gravity sewer flushing, and we are 21% through that. We are finishing up, as I indicated, with our industrial monitoring. And then here is a more detailed write-up. I kind of did the executive Reader's Digest version of it in my report. Scott has a more detailed report, so feel free to go through that. We will talk in a little more, the technical aspects of the bypass is very interesting for you, to understand that. And then also to note, because I think it is very important that the DEP comes by and they do their unannounced inspections of your bypass. And our inspector came by and basically told us that he had never saw such a neatly placed bypass set up before. So you can certainly attribute that to Scott, because he was probably out there making sure that it was laid out very neat. And it was an interesting project. Other than to keep the meeting going along, I would tell you that it was really interesting how they did that. So if you're interested in understanding that, see me after the meeting, and I'll take you through that. Connections, we're at 2 this month, and there should be and there is in your packet the standard monthly report now that you can see where we are in tracking, and we can talk about that. All right, so I have now completed Scott's portion of the operations report.
Thank you very much.
Why there are so many commercial units connected this time? Commercial units are lot, 120. I'm just asking because
Sorry, I didn't hear you, Commissioner.
it's kind of unusual that total commercial units for this month is 152.
No, it's
No,
not
that's
this month.
predicted.
No,
Oh, this
that's
is
predicted.
Projected.
Yeah, we only had 2 connections for this month.
Okay.
Here, actual units.
Yeah, I'm looking at the body with predicted units. Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions on that? All right, moving along. Negotiations personnel will have one item in the executive session. Municipal liaison. I forgot to tell you. I'm sorry. So 2 quick items. 5%. The council requested the 5% of our budget as we allocated. There's ongoing negotiations around that to be determined to try to reduce some of that request, just based on past history and also current expenditures that we're facing. So that's one item. The second is, I believe the pump station property is the road leading to one of the pump stations out in the Franklin Park area came up for discussion for access rights. I'm not sure if DEP's, okay. Well, so the road, it was brought to the council's attention to close the gate at Scott's request, or put a gate at Scott's request for the pump station out on, what road it's like it's an abandoned, basically nobody lives on the road leading to the pump station. Scott took me out there during my tour. So the council's considering closing that off for access at Scott's request to try to reduce anybody from going back there, since there's no reason. So that was brought up to us, to council. That's pretty much it for municipal liaison. Construction. Anything? Okay. And safety. No accidents,
So no accidents.
which is great considering how much extra work there was during the event. So, moving along, the approval of the consent agenda. The approval of the resolutions will be done by consent agenda. All the items listed below are considered to be of a routine nature, thereby requiring 1 motion and 1 second for all items. If any member wishes to remove an item from the consent agenda, please advise me at this time which resolution needs to either be handled separately or discussed, and they will be addressed and voted on separately. On the consent agenda, payroll account of $151,758.66. Operating expenses account $795,716.02. General fund $22,277.33. Renewal and replacement $213,111.35. Renewal and replacement NJEIT construction fund $2,757,190. North Track crossing $11,546.08. And the escrow account of $2,240.23. Is there a motion to accept the consent agenda, or to approve the consent agenda?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second?
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Van Berenson?
Yes.
Ms. DeVoe?
Yes.
Ms. Ford?
Yes.
Mr. Jallo?
Yes.
Mr. Tuari?
Yes.
And Chairman Galtieri?
Yes. All right.
Resolution number 8, Mr. Chairman, is a resolution authorizing the executive director and secretary to execute an agreement with Lane Contracting, Inc. for the construction of the Hamilton Street pump station on behalf of the Franklin Township Sewerage Authority.
Is there a motion for this resolution? To approve this resolution?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
Okay, roll call please.
Mr. Van Berenson?
Yes.
Ms. DeVoe?
Yes.
Ms. Ford?
Yes.
Mr. Jallo? Mr. Tuari?
Yes.
And Chairman Galtieri?
Yes.
Next resolution before the Commissioners, Mr. Chairman, is a resolution authorizing a change in the rates, rules, and regulations of the Franklin Township Sewerage Authority as mentioned in the Executive Director's report and set forth therein.
Is there a motion to accept the resolution to change the rates, rules, and regulations?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call please.
Mr. Van Berenson?
Yes.
Ms. DeVoe?
Yes.
Ms. Ford?
Yes.
Mr. Jallo?
Yes.
Mr. Tuari?
Yes.
And Chairman Galtieri?
Yes.
Next resolution, Mr. Chairman, is a resolution authorizing the execution of a developers agreement between Sycamore Developers LLC from Birch Glen, Somerset, and the Franklin Township Sewerage Authority.
Is there a motion for this resolution? To accept this resolution?
So
And
moved.
motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call please.
Mr. Van Berenson?
Yes.
Ms. DeVoe?
Yes.
Ms. Ford?
Yes.
Mr. Jallo? Mr. Tuari?
Yes.
And Chairman Galtieri?
Yes. All right, from what I understand, we have an executive session, so is there a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, roll call please.
The issues here going into executive session are the safety techniques and attorney-client privilege, as well as personnel involving the executive director. Did you receive the right for any proceedings? The director requested to renew his rights relative to a rights notice to have it in executive session, to have it in open session, and therefore there will be a personnel matter involving the executive director. Formal action may be taken at the conclusion of the executive session.
Okay, is there, roll call please.
Mr. Van Berenson?
Yes.
Ms. DeVoe?
Yes.
Ms. Ford?
Yes.
Mr. Jallo?
Yes.
Mr. Tuari?
Yes.
And Chairman Galtieri?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, we're going to need, I believe, Mr. Danielson for the first piece of this executive session. And I don't know, it's up to the executive director.
7:39, April.